الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد، سلام الله عليكم ورحمة الله. We will continue on our discussion with regards to traditions. Some of us who are, as we teach, they would appreciate how early scholars' ways of teaching. It is very interesting, to me at least. There are ways that they use, or methodologies that they use in teaching traditions, and they are one of the most common is most of them that I mentioned earlier episode. They memorize them. They not only written down their narrations, they memorize their narration as well, some of the narrations. So they have a written document with them, but when they comes to in front of their teacher, they're well prepared. So we know that effective teaching, the teacher has to be well prepared, just like they did. They were well prepared. They know their stuff, and so they will come to the students, and they will be teaching from their memory, meaning, because we go to the class, we don't start looking at piece of paper and teach. That's distracting. So the same thing, we have to well prepared, come to the class, and then talk to them from your memory. And that's the way of, even if you do the presentation to others, you just have to do this. You just have to practice, and this is exactly what the companions and then those follow them have done. And they actually prepared and they read from their memory. This become less and less common. So this is the first way of doing this. Another way that we find is the book. Just like we have a textbook, either the teacher, the instructor, or the teacher will be reading from that textbook, whether the textbook is compiled by the teacher or the book written by the students. So they will be reading, someone will be reading in the class, and then they will discuss. Reading and discussion, and that's also is one effective way of teaching, and which the students might be reading, the instructor might be reading in turn. That will keep them active learning process and so on. And another very useful in teaching is question answer, and that was done even right from the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They kept that tradition until today. So the students will be asking questions, the instructor, the scholar, will be answering the question. If students do not ask any question, the instructor will ask questions to make sure that they go away with some basic thing that they wanted to cover. So that's something that is very much practiced, and until today we do that, and it's very effective way of doing this. Another way we found that, but we don't really do this anymore, but it's like a dictation. this was not very favored. This was not widespread. By the time Zuhri started, then they stopped doing this method. Some scholars do not like to dictate. So that's something that maybe my undergraduate years and even graduate studies, I found at least one particular teacher used to explain. Then he said, he dictate to us, write down. So he wants to make sure that we not only understand, we get what he said, right? He has something to dictate. So some still use it, but it's not very common. Okay, that's another way of doing this. They did this. Another way is quite common even today. The current day scholars use quite widely. Even if you go to Masjid al-Nabawi today, and you see after the prayer, a scholar will be sitting on a chair, and a student will be reading, whether it is the Book of Allah or the Sunnah of the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and then and then the teacher or the scholar will interrupt and tell him stop, and then he will explain what it means. So this is done even today. The students listen very carefully, and especially from the 2nd century, this became a very popular method. So most of the time, the teachers who provide the copies, not from the student copies. Just like today, we have a book, for example, we're going to read from Fath Bari, and then the book is given to the student. Student will read from the book, line by line, or stop sentence by sentence. If there is a need for clarification, the scholars will interrupt and explain. All right. And I've seen some of the scholars were so knowledgeable that a student was reading, and because it is sometimes they are nervous and they make mistakes, they miss out a narrator, and then you see the teacher without a book, he said no, stop, and that's not correct. The correct name is this. Subhanallah. I mean, that's how until today, I mean, that particular scholar passed away, but I've seen the scholars who correct the reading of the students. Students could be reading, but sometimes, because of nervousness, he miss out one narrators, or he miss out a name mixed up, and he will correct them right away. So that shows how knowledgeable the scholars are. In fact, this knowledge, this memorization still exists. I had a student, I must say this. He was taking a course with me long time ago, 20 plus years ago. And when he submitted there was a final exam, and I received his answer sheet, and I was correcting it, and I was suspicious of him, because his answer sheet is like exact copy from the textbook. Then I raised the flag. And I complained. I said, this student's no way he will pass, because he cheated. He copied from the book, although I didn't notice.